There are more mollusks in the ocean than any other kind of animal, and yet there is almost no attention being paid to them. The reason we're doing this conference is to change that. My name is Dory Hipschman. I'm the Executive Director of the Bailey Matthews National Shell Museum, and this week we are hosting Mollusks in Peril. It is the first international forum on the risks that are facing mollusk shells, as most people know them, from around the world. Freshwater, saltwater, terrestrial. We have it all here. We have scientists that we have brought in, and the conversations and the presentations are just amazing.
The biodiversity that we share the planet with is extraordinary. You know, it's a refreshing thing to be able to walk in nature and see the diversity of animals and plants that we share the earth with, and be able to explain that to your children, your grandchildren, and your great-grandchildren down the road. But more importantly, many of these organisms play vital roles in maintaining ecosystem functions and services.
Mollusks is basically a group of animals. It's a phylum of animals. It includes the things that people know best: gastropods and bivalves, clams, mussels, whelks, conchs. But it also includes things like squid and octopus and nudibranch.
There are many mollusks that I think in a 50-year period we are likely to lose.
There are a number of mollusk-specific attributes that make them especially susceptible to climate change and other stressors.
Most people don't really know about the daily lives of these animals and the risks that they face. Pollution, climate change.
Temperatures right now are completely different than those that were seen 100 years ago.
We have floating pteropods in the ocean that are almost microscopic. Their shells, because of ocean acidification, are dissolving.
We're losing things at a rate way too fast than we can discover them. So most of these things are going to be lost before we ever even know they exist.
Every time we go out to sea, we find species that have never been seen before, never been described. We find behaviors that nobody's observed before.
Climate change isn't just something that's going to be happening over the next 50 to 100 years. We're seeing the impacts right now. We're seeing it in the Arctic. We're seeing it in coral reefs.
We are now causing an extinction that is 10 times faster, at the rate 10 times higher than the Great Permian extinction. That's extraordinary to imagine.
The ocean is a very important part of our Earth. In fact, it's the biggest part of our Earth. Why we call it Earth and not ocean is another matter entirely. But you know, with this important part of our global ecosystem being so imperiled, meetings like this help us to understand what these things are and better help us to look forward and say, what are things we should be doing now? What are things we need to do in the future to improve how we're treating the ocean and how we're helping to conserve a lot of the Earth's ecosystems.
Even though it's a global issue, it's one that can be tackled on a local scale.
Some of these scientists have been working on what I call parallel paths, and we wanted to sort of crash them together a little bit.
This conference for me has been an opportunity to learn about many different groups of mollusks that I don't typically think about. For example, terrestrial mollusks are also endangered by a variety of processes that are not the same as the issues faced by the marine environment, and those were not on my radar to a large extent. And so I'm learning a great deal about mass extinctions on a scale that are usually seen over geological times are happening in our lifetimes in some cases. And so
it's not a race to really save biodiversity for biodiversity's sake. It's really a race to save ourselves, because this planet is going to become a very uncomfortable place to live. The hope is though, that human beings are very good at fixing things. That's one of the things that separates us from the rest of the animals on the planet. We're incredibly good problem solvers, and we can overcome a lot of things. And so there's a lot of hope left. And that's one of the great things about a meeting like this too, is it brings together some of the best minds working on these problems and engages with people that have a lot of natural history information and begins sort of having a discussion about what are we going to do to fix this problem.
Our vision is to take people's natural love for shells and through that create a love and a stewardship of the marvelous animals that create these shells. If you're on the beach, look at what's under your feet. It's as simple as that. If you have kids, you know, park yourself in the grass or on the beach or something. Get muddy, get dirty, you know. Sometimes I feel as a population we have become so disassociated from the world around us, and the first step toward saving anything is to care about it, and you can't care about it if you don't know it exists. So for me, the first takeaway is for people to start to be aware and just look at the tree or the bush next to you. You will find hundreds of animals, you'll find all kinds of amazing stuff. But you have to stop and look. It's one of the things that the museum is very engaged in, is not just bringing people into the museum, but we are putting volunteers on the beach. We are doing beach walks. We want environmental education in the environment because that's really where people have to learn to find it. We really think that by doing one thing right after another, and showing people this world, that the museum can interact with visitors from around the world and truly change the world, even though we're starting from a very small thing. You have to start small, you have to think really big, and you have to act now, and that's really what we're doing.